I am. You? Very well.
Very well, yeah. Just surprised at 10-year contract for a player. I'm just going to check on Jota. Is he okay to start? Because you know he was undergoing an individual session yesterday, and I'm just looking at the importance of him because 3 of his last 4 Premier League goals have taken a total of 5 points. You've got the winner against Palace, the equaliser against Fulham, the equaliser against Forest the other night as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt about the fact that Jota is an important player for us. But he wasn't, like you said, on the training ground yesterday, so that means we have to see today where he is. So it's not sure that he will be available for tomorrow. We have to wait and see today.
What's the issue there?
Yeah, he felt a little bit when he came in, a little niggle, is that the way you say it? Yeah. During the half hour he came in and he could finish the game, but afterwards he complained a bit about it, and that's why he didn't train yesterday. And we have to wait and see if he's available today, and then of course tomorrow.
Obviously, we're looking at the title race and see the gap is 4 points at the moment. And we look at the game against Brentford as an opportunity to put pressure on Arsenal now because they play after you. So how do you see it? Does it come into the thinking now that you can ask the question of Arsenal and then they have to respond?
No, I don't look at it that way. I didn't even know that they were playing later than us. I only look at the opponent we have to face, and I know that's a tough one. Brentford was my first Premier League game, I think, and then I already thought like, oof. If this is going to be the resistance we get every week, then it's going to be then this is a more difficult league than the Eredivisie, which I knew before I came, but it was proven that day as well. And they've had a very good season till now. Had a 2-2 against City, great game. Both teams creating a lot of chances. And their manager has done a fantastic job for so many years now. You can see that it's a team that has worked together with their manager for a long time. So that's my only focus, and not on when does Arsenal play or when does Chelsea play or when do all the others play. We only focus on ourselves and the team we have to face.
And when the advantage at the top of the table has narrowed the way it has, how does that impact the squad mentally, if at all?
I don't think we are as much as the media thinking about the league table every second of the day. We are trying to get the best out of the players, and with we, I mean my staff, and the players trying to get the best out of themselves every single day. And these players know how long the season still is and how many games they have to be in the best possible form to win something in the end of the season, which is not something that happens every single season. So we are not so focused on the league table as other people are. We are focused on getting a good training session today and getting a good game tomorrow. And as a result of that, we are hoping for a result. But the only way to get a result is to work on a daily basis in the best possible way.
Just building on that point about Brentford, it was Virgil that mentioned after the game against Forest that people might jokingly, he said, think we're in a bit of a crisis, but that's just another example of how tough the Premier League is this season, and Brentford are a real example of that.
Yeah. The last thing I agree, and the first one as well. This season, maybe more than every other season, shows the strength of every single team that's in the league. Even yesterday evening, I think it was quite a surprise to see Southampton going toe to toe with United. So it shows you that in the second half of the season, and I told this thing last week as well, it's even harder to win your games than in the first half of the season because teams are longer together, managers working longer with the team. You've played already once against each other, so maybe there's a different game plan. So some teams bring players in to strengthen the squad. And teams are fighting for getting into Europe, winning the league, trying to stay in the league. So second half of the season is always even more difficult than the first half of the season. And Brentford is an example of a team that was already really strong in the first half of the season, especially at home. But it had maybe something to do with the fixture list as well, because they had a lot of difficult away games. But they are a very good team for a few years now, and they've showed it this first half of the season, and especially Tuesday evening again against City.
you've got a really busy period coming up now where you're, for the next foreseeable future, going to be playing weekend. Do you vary things in training? Do you do anything differently in order to make sure that you're fully prepared for that?
No, because if I remember correctly, this has been the situation from the moment we started against Brentford. Maybe that was the only week afterwards where we didn't play a game during the week, but from that moment on, it was almost every time since the Champions League started. It's almost every week a double program, and then you would tell me, yeah, but there were international breaks where they went to the national team, which is true, because there were 10 days off for me or 7 days off for me, but not for the players. So even in March, again, where you feel like, okay, there's a break in March, but I know a bit better than every other country where the Dutch team plays against, and that's Spain. So it's going to be for Virgil, for Cody, and for Ryan, 2 very tough games against a very strong team again, when you guys think they have a break. So this is, for the whole season, it's like this. This is what makes the Premier League the hardest league in the world to play in, I think, and to compete in. But we've tried to prepare them in pre-season and during the year for this schedule. So if you look in it a bit closer, you see that every 3 or 4 weeks there's been a break for a player like Virgil when we had the League Cup game or another game where he was off during the week. And that is the way we try to manage it. And what the good thing is, what we still see is that the physical output is, even after the winter break, is even higher than before. So they are completely fit and ready for this program. But if you look at the results, you could argue differently. But I've said many times before, that is 9 out of 10 times because of the resistance you face from the other team, and not about if it's a 12-15 kickoff or injuries or other excuses that are mostly there. It's always about the quality of the team you face, in my opinion.
Arne, Darwin Nunez available again after suspension. He's still struggling for goals. We know he has so many different facets to his game, but you can see his confidence is being affected by the lack of goals. But what do you do in that sort of situation to try? The vital component is the composure, but it's not an easy quality to bring to somebody when they are struggling confidence-wise.
Yeah, but that's your perception, and maybe the perception of other people as well. But it's not my perception that he's struggling in self-confidence. He was involved against Accrington Stanley in the first goal again as well. He was involved in the goal against Fulham that Jota scored, and he scored one against Southampton. And I think after that, it wasn't that he had many starts, maybe one time. I don't know exactly. So for me, it's the life of a striker. Sometimes you score, sometimes you don't. And he hasn't started every single game. So for the most important thing for me is that we as a team are able to score every single game, except for the Tottenham one. I'm not sure, maybe that was the only game we've played this season that we didn't score. Is that true, what I'm saying? Tottenham was that only, because you are from Stats. So it tells me that we have so many goals in our team. And yeah, Darwin will score his goals like he did for this club already, and he will keep doing this. But I don't see him struggling that much as the way you see it, and he's still involved in goals in the last few games as well.
Cody Gakpo's form on the left-hand side for the majority of the season, he's been sensational. That's meant that Luis Diaz generally has to play in a more central position, and he's been effective himself out on the left-hand side. But he's not been as effective in the recent games. Is it sometimes a struggle to try and shoehorn all these different sort of talents into your starting?
I do agree with your perception that Cody is in a very good place. So sometimes we agree. Lucio has done really well as a 9. And even in West Ham just before the winter break, that was a performance of us as a team, but from him as a 9 also very good. And then afterwards he played there in 3 more games, I think. United, Tottenham, and last one against Forest. in all games we've created many chances as a team, and that's the most important thing. And I'm happy with how he does, as if we play him as a left winger, and I'm happy how he plays when we play him as a 9. And it's the same like Darwin. He scored many goals already as a 9. He scored many goals as an 11 as well. And sometimes it's the right winger, Mo, who scores. Mo, you haven't talked about him yet, but the last 3 games he only scored a penalty. So, it is. We can continue talking about every single player of us, about the goals they score. But in general, we score a lot of goals. And we create a lot of chances. That's the most important thing.
Andy?
You've kept 1 clean sheet in the last 7 league games. How much of a concern is that?
We haven't.
You've kept 1 clean sheet.
Yeah, not as much as we did before. I wouldn't say it's a concern, but it's also not what we want, because it was one of our strengths also in the beginning of the season that we kept a lot of clean sheets. But it's every time the same what I'm saying now. So we've talked about the strikers or the attackers sometimes having a bit of difficulties to score. I think if I look at the amount of chances we give away in the last 7 games, and I look at this, how many chances we gave away in all the games before, I don't see many difference. The only difference is that the team we are facing at the moment. So Forest, for example, they had one serious shot on target, and that was a goal. Where that is not normal in football, and this has happened to us. United had maybe 3 good chances against us, scored 2. Tottenham had hardly any chance except for the one when Ali lost the ball, and the one chance there in the end they scored. So that is, like with strikers, sometimes a phase in the season where you hardly concede anything, but still they score. I've said already, Crystal Palace away, that we beat 1-0 10 minutes before the end. They went on a 1v1 against Leeds, which was a bigger chance maybe than some goals we've conceded recently. So that is also, sometimes you're a bit lucky that and sometimes your goalkeeper makes a great save. But like the amount of chances we create, we hardly concede a chance, and that has been the same for the whole season. But when it comes to collecting points, I also see a bit of a difference at the moment compared to the beginning of the season.
Carl?
Just really, when you see a Premier League rival investing in a player with a 10-year contract and the finances that involved, is that a reminder of just how good you have to be consistently season over season to be able to compete with sort of that sort of investment?
Not particular about the investments, but we know how good we have to be every single day to compete in this league. So it's not only the club you are now referring to. Chelsea also spent 1.2 billion. Is that the way you say it over? Yeah. United spends an incredible amount. Every team spends a lot of money over here. That's why it's such an interesting league to be part of. And some season this club spends a bit more, the other season the other club spends a bit more. So that's what makes this league so intense and so difficult to win this league. And but that's also the reason why we all want to be here, because you want to compete against the best, with the best. And we are very happy with the team we are having at the moment. And we are still able to compete with all these teams that are spending incredible amount of money.
Can I just get on Jota? Just with his injury history, do you have to sort of treat him slightly differently, like a special program, just because of the years he's had and where you have to?
Not because it's Jota, but I think every player has an individual program. I've said this last week, I think as well, that 80 or 90% of they do the same. But of course, every individual has things he wants to improve or to prevent him from getting a certain injury that he maybe had in the past. So of course, there's an eye on him doing some individual work to prevent him from getting injured. But that's not only with him, that's with all the others the same. So there is a special program for him, as there is for every single player. There's a special program for every single player, but 80 or 90% is for every player the same.
Well,
Hi, Arne. As it turns out, Forest at home was the only other time we didn't score, just in case you were wondering. Attacking depth is such a massive commodity for all teams at the moment this season, and Liverpool's has been much celebrated this season. But we actually only ranked 12th for goals from the bench. Jota's was only the 3rd time this season Liverpool scored a goal from the bench in the Premier League this season. And you've spoken so often about how games are tight and how against a team like Brentford, who are very good at scoring late on. Is there something you'd like to see improving on? And do you think there's something your attacking side need to do more to kind of affect the game?
No, because there was not many times a reason for them to affect the game with a goal. Of course, if we play, we want to score goals. Let that be clear. But one of the things I would like us to do better in the second half of the season, the first half of the season, although it wasn't many times necessary to make a late goal winner. Is that the way to say it? So there were a few games, United, Fulham, this one, where we created chance after chance, because everybody only reminds the Maguire chance, but in the 7 minutes before we created 3 big chances. So we had a lot of chances in these 3 games to score the winner in the last phase of the game, but for almost all the other games, after 75 minutes, we were already leading. So there was not a real necessity then to score in the end, but in the 3, 4 or 5 games where we weren't winning yet, we did create a lot of chances, but we're not able to score. Like I said, it's such a small sample size. If there's only 3 or 4 games where we needed a goal, it's a bit simple to make the conclusion that we don't score it then. So then hopefully we don't come in these situations a lot. But we definitely, if we are coming in those situations, have 1 or 2 or 3 times a moment where we do score in the last minute of the game when we deserve it.
David Lynch.
I just wonder if Diogo's initials might be thinking around getting down potentially or not on this one, whether we're thinking right now.
Yeah, I think you take a lot of things into account if you want to loan out a player, and this could be one of them, but there are also other factors you take into account. Is it good for a player to get some playing time, yes or no? Do we think we still need him? We do have already 3 options for the number 9 position. And it's not like that we expect Jota now to be out for a long period of time. So it will be a struggle to have him on the pitch maybe on Saturday, maybe tomorrow. But we're hoping to see him on the pitch in the near future again. So we have 3 options. But Jadon did really well when he came in. So we have actually 4 options. And then it's up to us as a club to make the best possible decision for the near future, but also for the long-term future of this club.
Yeah.
Just a question on opposition. Your first Premier League game at Anfield was against Brentford. What part of their game do you see as a threat?
A lot of they are. So some teams you play, they have 1 or 2 big strengths, and they play from this strength completely. So it's either they play the long ball, second ball, and they play counter-attack. But there are also teams that can do a lot of things really well. And I think this is an example of Brentford. They play a high press man-for-man. They go to a very low block if necessary with the whole team. Can score goals in all different ways. We all know their set-piece strength, of course. They can score goals in the first seconds of the game. So there's a lot for me to prepare the team for when we play Brentford. There are also some teams that are very good in 1 or 2 things, and that you can tell the team, now I have to take a bit more time for this game to show them or tell them what the strength of Brentford is. So there's not one strength. I think they have many strengths, many different options, many different players. They can play with 5 at the back. They can play with 4 at the back. So it shows me that it's a team that has worked for so many years with the same manager already, because it's quite difficult to get one formation in your team, let alone if you want to have 2. And that mostly is the situation if you work longer together, then you're able to bring more formations into your team. So it's a lot to prepare them for.
Last one for the Rico.
I assume he is, yeah. Yeah, yesterday he wasn't out because he had I think it was a bit of a sore throat. But I assume he will be training with us today. But I still have to hear this, but we're expecting him to train with us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.